Every generation has a voice. And no, I'm not talking about some famous world leader, scientist, or martyr. This video isn't gonna be that serious. I mean, we're talking about a yellow sponge, for Christ's sake. See, since television was first invented by Philo Farnsworth in 1927, it's been used, well, for literally anything other than what its creator had intended, but that pretty much just means that rather than using it solely to spread knowledge around the world, it was more quickly adapted to spreading entertainment around the world, because it's more fun to watch Tom and Jerry murder each other in the perpetual hellscape that is their reality than it is to, think. Because of this, the entertainment industry exploded around television, and thus we saw the rise of what for this video I will be referring to as the quote-unquote voices of generations, aka fictional characters who've achieved such incredible success that they've left long-standing marks on the people and societies who watched them. Subsequently, rather than fading away into obscurity, these characters still to this day continue to leave impressions on those who watch them despite how old or outdated the source material is. As a result, there's a really good chance you probably recognize some of these voices. Characters like Bart Simpson, Jean-Luc Picard, Kermit the Frog, and Bugs Bunny are just a couple of names that come to mind. These characters and the stories around them made us laugh, cry, think, and feel, well, like the burdens of life could be shouldered just a little bit more comfortably with their help. They more often than not have come to be associated with certain time periods and archetypes. And look, I know this can't be much of a unique thought, but SpongeBob SquarePants definitely deserves a seat at the table, so to speak, when it comes to the consideration of these legendary characters. Now, before some of you might chalk this claim up to nostalgia, allow me to explain. Don't get me wrong, I always grew up watching this show, and of course I always loved it, and as a result I've grown a nostalgic love for the show and its characters. But if the show was only as beloved as it is today because of the nostalgia of the adults who used to watch it as kids, then why was it that as a child almost 20 years ago, every single time I turned the show on, by the time it was over, my older brother, father, cousins, and aunts had all gathered around and joined in on the spectacle? Why do these characters still command such powerful and instant recognition, not just in the US, but around the world? How is it that in an age of trends that live and die in a matter of hours, SpongeBob and the metric ton of memes that represent only a fraction of the show's legacy are consistently relevant? Simply put, what is it that makes SpongeBob SquarePants so good? Well, this is something I've actually been asking myself for quite a while now, because no matter where I went on the internet, I saw his face. It's like I'm Peter Parker and SpongeBob is Tony Stark for Neptune's sake. For real, he's all over the internet, referenced in my favorite movies. I can't even go down the street without seeing his face on the wall of a local dentist's office. So finally, when I capitulated and figured I'd try to tackle this video, I went on Amazon Prime and naturally binge-watched every single episode up to the 4-season mark. And what I discovered was not actually what I thought I'd find. I watched these episodes hoping to catch a glimpse of the show that I'd always loved growing up, and yet what I found instead was a show that blew the adult me out of the water. Get it? With just how jaw-droppingly funny it was, even a decade and change later. I found myself purely delighted at the witty, goofy, and sometimes just plain dumb humor that had been flawlessly laid out for me, and as I watched the characters and the talented group of writers slam episode after episode out of the park with bright, vivacious performances and inspired animation, I couldn't help but feel like my work was cut out for me. I mean, just go ahead and watch any episode from the first 3 seasons and I can almost guarantee that you'll find a meme template, a famous scene, and a genuinely funny joke that you missed as a child once every couple minutes or so. Take it from somebody with the show fresh in their mind, it is truly difficult to understand how much of this show is gold until you actually sit down and watch it episode by episode. And I really feel like people don't give all long, tan, and handsome enough credit for this. I mean, just consider this. Right off the bat, this is a kids show, meaning it had to adhere to some pretty strict rules when it comes to what they could and couldn't do. And yet, even in spite of this, look at how recognizable and beloved the characters and stories are to people throughout every age group. Your kid watches SpongeBob. The stoner behind the dumpster at Wendy's watches SpongeBob. Bruce Willis watches SpongeBob. You watch SpongeBob. All this to say that the show's recognizability isn't due to the writer's single-minded focus on appeasing children. Like I said at the beginning of this video, and I'm sure a bunch of you can relate with me on this, I never watched SpongeBob alone, and most of the times it was because my 30-year-old brother had just opened up a beer and wanted to see what sort of cleverly written shenanigans SpongeBob had fallen into this time. Or because my 50-year-old father had wanted to see what sort of hilarity Patrick's dumbass was about to pull SpongeBob into this time. This show was clever and dumb. A once-in-a-generation, truly hilarious and charming spectacle to behold. And it was all this without relying on an abundance of gross-out humor, vulgarity, or sex scenes. SpongeBob SquarePants accomplished this huge success while still being wholly appropriate for younger audiences, a feat that most of these other icons cannot relate to. Don't get me wrong, I loved watching South Park, but I would never introduce it to a child. And sure, shows like Sesame Street are fantastic for youngsters, but I'm not exactly cracking open a cold one with the boys and hopping onto the couch to watch Elmo learn how to spell cucumber. But I would do either of these for SpongeBob, and that is certainly worth remarking upon. To be fair though, it's not entirely accurate to compare a lot of shows to SpongeBob because this show has something going for it that most shows or stories will never have. You see, we can't talk about SpongeBob without mentioning the expressive and exaggerated animation that made the characters come to life and stick with us for decades after release. I've said it before, and I will say it again. Animation is the future of entertainment, and if you watch SpongeBob, some of the reasons why will become clear as day to you. SpongeBob SquarePants uses what I refer to as exaggerated animation. This basically means that rather than trying to imitate real life as closely as possible, the animators went above and beyond in defying the laws of physics and reality in order to prioritize the way something feels emotionally rather than the way it looks realistically. Exaggerated animation, when done right, and believe you me, it can be done wrong, is relatable, and not because I see what's happening on screen as being realistic, it's because I can empathize with what's going on. I may never eat so many cheeseburgers that my thighs expand to the size of a children's hospital and then explode, but I can empathize with the feeling of having eaten too much and then feeling as if my stomach was about to rupture. Excellent animation can be like a really good analogy in a book, or a sound effect in a movie. Both of these are things that aren't realistic. Like, I know knives and swords don't actually make fancy flashy sounds when you slice them through the air, but damn it, it's so much cooler when they do! These are aspects of entertainment that are used to help us understand a concept, emotion, or situation much more profoundly than if we were to actually see the physical real-life equivalency in front of us. And the exaggerated animation for SpongeBob isn't just relatable, it's goddamn hilarious. Maybe this is the reason why there's a new SpongeBob meme every 15 seconds. People just seem to be able to relate to these images and the stories or emotions behind them very easily. You can never have seen a single episode of SpongeBob and still think this image is funny. You may never have seen the character Patrick Star, but you'll still relate to this meme. And herein lies the beauty of the animation team behind our favorite yellow periphera. This show's animation might have gotten crisper as the budget increased, but the actual quality of the animations on screen are and always will be picture perfect, which is again something that can't be said about most other animated shows that wind up getting more and more elaborate and well animated as their shows go on. The truth is, SpongeBoy me Bob is a special laddie indeed, and it's really hard to cover all of the reasons why. I mean, this video is already past the 10-minute mark, and I haven't even mentioned the soundtrack or gone into the simple effectiveness behind each of the show's side characters. But honestly, this video could probably be an hour long and I still wouldn't run out of positive things to say about the wonderful legacy Stephen Hillenburgs left behind for all of us to enjoy. So, I guess I'll end it here with these final words. When you think of SpongeBob, remember the good times. Remember the memes, the jokes, the characters, and the scenes. Remember the things that made this show so good, and then go watch it and relive just how good they really are, because I guarantee that you'll find yourself surprised at how much you genuinely find yourself cracking up. I know I was, and that, well, that is what makes SpongeBob SquarePants so damn good.